Welcome to the August episode of College Recruiter Webcast. I'm Stephen Rothberg. I'm the founder of College Recruiter, joined today by Jeanette Leeds, our Chief Operating Officer. As those of you who have seen some of these, my background means that I'm in my home office. Her background means that she's
I
having
am
more
not.
fun. She's on the road.
I'm on the road. Jeanette
Who
from on the
wins?
road.
Do you win or
Exactly.
do I win? We
Mm,
both know the answer to
yeah,
that.
exactly. We'll let our listeners decide.
So
So I love it.
we're going to talk for a little bit today, Jeanette, about internship hiring. Not so much like whether you hire them, whether you don't hire them, how many, how, etc., but when.
When?
And forever in this business, what I have found is that the vast majority of employers don't even really start thinking about hiring interns until like maybe December. They kind of get through hiring new grads, and then it's like, okay, January's coming. We're going to hire interns in January, February, March. You've worked with some organizations that are a little bit more proactive than that. And so I thought it would be fun to talk about timing.
I love
So
that. I love that.
September's around the corner.
September's around the corner. Labor Day's around the corner. We're still in summer. I will say it's August when we're recording this.
Yes.
To be clear, we're not rushing summer away, but September is around the corner, which is back to school. I mean, I have so many friends now who are moving their kids into college. So what's so key is September feels like it's early, but for a number of big companies who are recruiting tons of students, like the banks, the consultings, the accounting, they actually are going on to campus either in person, virtually, and starting to talk to students September now. And so I think for the majority of employers don't do that. So I think it's really important for those organizations that want to recruit the type of students that the banks and the accounting companies are going after. It's really important to start in September, which again feels really early. And it's hard to think about almost two classes of recruiting because you're just tying up the graduates, right? You're
Mhm.
making full-time offers to those summer interns. And now you're like, ooh, I got to think about next summer already. It's actually can be really helpful and to start that outreach now.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I remember talking to some people that, I mean, they have forgotten more about college and university recruiting than I could ever hope to learn. People like Dan Black from EY,
Yes.
and learning from him and others years ago that for the larger organizations like the big four accounting and
Yep.
consultings, the banks, the investment banks, etc., that they will, even at the end of August, depending upon the school, but really starting Labor Day, that's when internship season really starts. They've pretty much interviewed everybody in September. They're extending offers in October. And if they don't
Yes.
have an acceptance by November, that they're probably not going to get it. The candidate might have been ghosting them, or they weren't going to extend an offer. But I was like, wow, if you're interviewing, call it around Labor Day, it's
Mhm.
not like EY just woke up one morning on September 7th and said, oh, we should go on these 28 campuses and interview. So when does the
Right.
planning start?
So the planning actually starts for a lot of this almost a year in advance sometimes, which is really wild when you think about it. So the whole schedule, it's almost like a full 2-year process. So a lot of career fairs, interviews, if you're doing things on campus, you got to book them like with the universities almost a year in advance. And there's a whole lottery system that might happen to get a better position of where you're going to
Oh,
be. The earlier interview dates, the better locations at a career fair. So there's a whole process that starts sometimes a year in advance, particularly more with business schools
okay.
versus not, in terms of those career centers versus, let's say, liberal arts or engineering, but that those processes do start early. It's not to say for those employers who might be listening, if you're like having anxiety all of a sudden and being like, oh my God,
I'm feeling anxious about this, and I'm
right?
not
I
even
know,
planning on
right?
hiring it.
Right, exactly. It's like, "Whoa, did I miss the boat?" You didn't, right? Because it but it's the whole point is that to start earlier, and it's a little bit of like it could feel like this arms race kind of thing of like, and
Yeah.
the for over the years is, oh, okay, are we going to start recruiting these candidates when they're like in kindergarten, right? And still in tech. But I've seen, which is sort of true, because you've seen some of these initiatives where they start even when you're a sophomore or when you first apply, or even like let's target high school. So there are some programs that start to not recruit per se, but develop the relationship with some top tier kids based on whatever skill set that an organization is looking for. Not to say that every organization needs to do that, and things definitely are evolving. I think the one point that we haven't even like touched on that I'm just thinking about is look, AI this year, right, for
Mm.
recruiting and the use of, whether it's ChatGPT or all the other versus even a year ago. I think there's something very interesting there that we may start to see some impact on how that affects the employers recruiting and the candidates as well.
And
So,
probably some predictable ways and some unpredictable. So, um, as you know, I'm the co-host with you on the High Volume
yes.
Hiring podcast. I'm also the co-host with Peter Zollman of the AIM Group on the Inside Job Boards and Recruitment Marketplaces podcast. By the way, letters and words were free, so we just took as many as we could. And the we just interviewed. It's under embargo, so I can't go into all the details, but it comes out on September 4th. But we just interviewed somebody from Indeed. Part of the discussion there was tech recruiting impact on AI. They've just done a study, and I can say there's some really interesting things. I can't say
Ooh,
what those things are. Um,
okay. This is like
but yeah, it's like
breaking
now
news.
Jeanette's like, oh,
September
you
4th,
gotta tell me, gotta tell me.
put it on
Um,
your
yeah,
calendar.
but like I think one predictable thing about AI is that it's that the economy, et cetera, has really negatively impacted the labor market for tech candidates, particularly entry level. That might have an impact on employers, like how aggressive do they have to be, how many people do they interview, all of that, right? But um, I wanted to circle back on something you said actually a minute ago about like the planning starting a year in advance,
Yeah.
and then you talked about like don't fret it. My words, not yours. Like, don't feel
Yeah,
anxious if you're not there.
yeah.
Okay, it is August. It is what it is, right? And there are definitely going to be organizations who are going to listen to this and be like, well, does that mean we just give up? We don't go and hire? To me, it's like, no. You had an analogy just before we started about
Mm,
maybe you don't have your first choice, but the
yes,
second choice might be really good too. And I'm not
exactly.
going to steal
So
your thunder
I
because
know.
it
So
was
what
it was
I've
your
used this
words.
analogy for years,
Yeah.
and this is so true. It's like a fruit stand, right? It's
Yeah.
it's like, are the fruit, is some of it picked over? Yes, some of them are picked over, right? But you're not just left with all the bruised ones. There's still great candidates. And the fact of the matter is, even a bruised apple might not look good on the outside, but inside it's awesome, right? And so the old adage of like, don't judge a book by its cover, like I think there's something really interesting there. And I think the other point that is coming to mind is there's a certain type of candidate that wants to work at a big bank, that wants to work at a big accounting company, that wants to be at a consulting company, but not everyone does. And what's a great candidate? What's that best looking fruit in that fruit stand that's been picked over, right? Maybe someone's making apple pie and you want that bruised apple because it's going to be just as good, if not better. Because I don't know, maybe I'm not a cook, but so
Mhm.
I'm running with this analogy in a different way. But I think there was an interesting point there of like what's good for one organization doesn't mean that's like the best fit for your organization. And so thinking about what's special about, your company or the job or the role. I think what's key is about the relationship and planting those seeds and not waiting, right? Is just being proactive. So much of recruiting is, in many ways, it's reactive. Like we're like, oh my God, what's have we got it? But where we can start to be more proactive and think through that just makes a big
Yeah,
difference.
that totally makes sense. I'm glad you talked about the sort of the difference in the candidates and what they're interested in.
Yeah,
Um, because, if there's like this really fancy restaurant that it takes, 18 months to get to the top of the reservation list, but you have no interest in going to that restaurant,
right,
what does it matter?
right.
It's like, okay, your next door neighbor has a reservation and they're going, and great, have fun, enjoy. It's not where you want to go. And so then it doesn't really matter. It also reminds me, and I suspect that you've seen this, in the years that you've been in this space too. Good economy, bad economy, tight labor market, bad labor market. There are always, always, always going to be students who are really proactive and right on top of it, and they're all over whatever the recruiting program is, whether it's on campus, whether it's a job board like College Recruiter, whether it's LinkedIn, whatever. And that doesn't necessarily make them a better employee. It makes them
True.
a better applicant or a better candidate.
Yes.
But you don't tend to hire people to apply to jobs. You tend to hire them to do the job. And I'm always struck by employers who will come in like March and sort of say, oh, well, it's too late to advertise our job openings because all of the students already are hired. And good markets, bad markets, it's always around 50%
Hmm.
of students graduating without a job. And I think some years it's because they can't get a job. And other years it's because they know it's going to be super easy. So why bother? They're
Right.
just gonna wait till they graduate because they know that the day they walk down the aisle, they throw their cap in the air.
Yep.
The next day they apply to 4 jobs. They've got 7 offers. So why spoil their
Yeah,
senior
just
year?
keep having
Where it's
fun
like,
senior year, right? It's sort of
yeah,
nice, great for
yeah,
before they're in the real world. And I think that's so true. And it's such a great point because what's being a great candidate applicant that might not be the skill set. Like maybe you have a job, maybe you're hiring for a job where you need to that proactivity is really key, right? But maybe there's like the roles that you're hiring for, that's not a that's not a key skill set at all. Like it could be maybe it's even detrimental and nothing's coming to mind. But and I think that's really such a good point. And so it circles back to like what is a job? What are the skills? What are you really trying to hire for? And then fitting your recruiting process around that.
yeah.
And I think it's also not feeling like, hey, am I too late? Right? Like, no, but again, being proactive and thinking about, again, if you can plant some seeds, you can get the branding out. I mean, what's so interesting is, you know, you always assume that everyone knows what you know, right? So people
Hmm.
will know about your company, even if it maybe is not a big brand, and that's not always the case. And so I think it's really important to, from a branding standpoint, even that brand recognition of getting some of your information out to students because they might not know of you, right? And so even though you're like, oh, of course, everyone knows of the whatever brand. I don't know
Right. No,
the black water
that
bottle brand. So
Is that a Yeti? No, it's not.
it's no, no, it's
The
not generic.
Yeah, no, and yeah, that reminds me, and we can probably bring it to a close, but maybe get some thoughts on this. We've had employer clients before who will say things like, "We're not hiring now. Most years we go on campus, we reach out, we interview thousands of people, we hire dozens or hundreds of people or whatever. But recruiting is down. Maybe there is even a hiring freeze, but we don't want to lose that brand. We want to stay top of mind.
Yes.
We don't want to burn bridges with career services, with professors, have candidates sort of forget we exist. And
Yeah.
so they shift some of that acquisition budget, like the
Mhm.
recruiting, like apply to our jobs budget, like job postings, for example, they shift that over to branding
Yes.
campaigns. Like we do targeted email campaigns. And
Great
it's sort of
example.
like reminds the candidates, this is who we are. This is what we do. These are the people who work here kind of thing, come to our website,
Yes.
check us out, maybe join a talent community if we've got something like that. Most organizations still have some jobs, even if they don't have a lot.
Yes.
So let's have a conversation. Um, in other organizations, when it's sort of like, okay, it's January, it's time to hire, boom, then they post jobs to us directly through an ad agency, an RPO,
Exactly.
whatever. So there are different sort of cycles.
I think that's
too.
such a it's a great point to bring that up because it's yeah, it's like I mean, to me, I always think of recruiting, it's marketing, right? And so
Yeah.
you gotta have like the brand, right? And so you're right, like our email brand blasts are perfect, like build the brand. And then when it's ready to like go, okay, the actual job, that's like marketing and lead gen. And so it's that same thing. And recruiters like need to really think about sometimes again we're so reactive where it's like, okay, we got to just post the job, right? Or we got to go in, where it's like, oh, hang on, both really works in tandem. And in particular for those times where you don't need as many applicants, candidates, hires. I've seen this time and time again. It's still a small world, right? And if those seniors who have graduated or the following year, they talk, right? Everyone's in touch, right? And so if you've pulled back as an employer, again, being forgotten, it actually takes about 3 years to recover
Mm.
from a just standpoint of like getting back up if you've hired at a certain level from a certain source, thinking about universities and colleges and whatnot, it's to get that back, the momentum back, which is just wild. So you got to maintain that presence. It's
So,
interesting.
so for the employers who are watching it, even if you're not, and this is going to be a really cringy analogy, but even
Uh-oh.
if you're not going on a road trip like Jeanette is on right now, keep those wheels greased. Is
Yes.
that
I
okay?
love it. I like it. I was like, where's this going? Keep on trucking for anyone who gets that reference. That's what we're gonna go with.
Well, cool. Jeanette,
Awesome.
enjoy, and
Thank you. Thank
I'll
you.
see you the next time.
See you next time. Take care,
Cheers.
everyone. Bye.